Since breaking up with my ex, I never thought I could develop feelings for someone who's already married. But when I met Kay, everything seemed to change. He's a kind neighbor, always ready to help and listen to me. Even though I know he's married with kids, I can't deny how I feel. But what happens if I get closer? Could this feeling turn into something real? Or is it just an illusion? After breaking up with my ex, I tried to rebuild my life. I moved in with my best friend and her husband in a rented house in the suburbs. As anyone who has been through a long-term breakup knows, it's a huge shock, and I wasn't an exception. I not only had to deal with the feeling of loss, but also with loneliness and emptiness. However, life went on, and I gradually got used to the new routine with my dear friends. One afternoon, while we were moving into the new house, a man knocked on our door, introduced himself, and offered to help. He was our new neighbor named Kay. Not only did he help us carry boxes, but he also chatted with me, making me feel an unexpected sense of ease. His small talk and genuine smiles made me feel like I was waking up in a world I had forgotten about. Kay spoke fondly of his wife and 3 children, always mentioning them with a tenderness I had never seen in anyone before. As we began meeting on the train to work every day, our conversations became more frequent and intimate. I remember one morning, as the train passed through lush green fields, he asked me about my work and future plans. I was taken aback because in my previous relationship, I always had to fight for my ex's attention. Kay, however, genuinely cared about what I had to say, and I could feel sincerity in every question. Over time, I realized I was developing strong feelings for Kay. He was always the first to greet me when we met, offering compliments and gestures of care that I couldn't help but notice. But I also knew that he had a family, and that made me hesitate. I had never thought I could fall for someone who was already married, especially when he had a wife and 3 small children. Every time he talked about them, I couldn't help but feel a strange sense of jealousy and worry. Could I have a future with this man when he already had everything he needed? Even though I knew about his family, I couldn't stop thinking about Kay. Every time he mentioned his wife and children, I felt a peculiar insecurity, but I couldn't stop myself from desiring to be with him. I wondered, was I getting swept up in a love that had no way out? When I looked at his family, I couldn't help but imagine a future where I was a part of it, but I also knew that could just be an illusion. The conversations between Kay and I on the train became more and more intimate. What started as simple questions about work and life gradually grew into longer and deeper exchanges. Kay wasn't just interested in my work, he was curious about the little things in my life that I rarely shared with anyone. He would smile and tell me I had a captivating way of speaking, which made me happy and more eager to share. Kay told me about his family, his wife, and their 3 young children. It became clear that he truly loved his family, always dedicating time to care for them. Whenever he had a moment, he would call his wife or talk to his kids. The way he spoke about them, filled with affection and responsibility, made me admire him even more. At the same time, it made me feel a little jealous. I wondered if someone like Kay could ever show that same care and attention to me if we had a chance together. Even though I knew about his family, and despite the fact that Kay had never done or said anything to indicate that he was interested in me beyond friendship, I couldn't stop thinking about him. These feelings weren't like anything I had experienced before. During our time together on the train, I would often daydream about another life, one where Kay and I shared little moments, joys, and challenges together. But I reminded myself that this could never happen. What made it harder to stop thinking about him was the way he treated me. He wasn't like any other man I had known. Whenever I talked about the struggles in my work or past relationships, Kay always listened without judgment, simply sharing his thoughts and offering sincere advice. His genuine care made me feel like I had found a true friend, someone I could trust and confide in. But it was also because of this that I began to feel a strange sense of insecurity. While I knew Kay was a married man, and I never wanted to interfere in that, I couldn't stop imagining a different scenario. Were these feelings worth the risk? Could this relationship become something deeper than just friendship? Or was it simply a dream that could never come true? Every day, when I stepped onto that train, I felt like I was at a crossroads, torn between reason and emotion. I knew I needed to keep my distance, but at the same time, I couldn't deny how drawn I was to Kay's warmth and kindness. His stories became a part of my daily life, and I began to feel that those train rides weren't just about commuting. They were a place where I found comfort and warmth in a world that was changing around me. One evening, as I was sitting in the living room watching TV with my best friend, I heard a knock at the door. When I opened it, I saw Kay standing outside, looking a bit worried. He explained that his wife, who was pregnant, had been in a car accident while on a business trip and had to go to the hospital. Since they didn't have family in the state, Kay had booked a flight to be with her, but he couldn't leave his kids at home alone. He hesitated for a moment and then asked if I could watch the kids for a few hours. I didn't think twice. I had some free time and didn't want him to worry more than he already was. I agreed right away, even though I couldn't help but feel a bit apprehensive about looking after kids I'd barely interacted with. Kay thanked me profusely and left in a hurry, leaving me alone with his 3 children. As soon as Kay left, I began to feel uneasy. The oldest, a 12-year-old girl, immediately showed her discontent. Not only did she refuse to listen to me, but she also argued with me about everything, from what they should eat to which games they could play. She even muttered rude words under her breath. I didn't know how to handle it. Despite my attempts to be firm, she wouldn't cooperate. The younger 2 weren't much better. The second child was constantly running around, demanding I play loud and messy games, which drained me. The youngest, though quieter, was easily swept up in whatever mischief the older ones were creating. I tried my best to stay patient, but I could feel my energy wearing thin, and frustration started creeping in. Things took a turn for the worse when I decided to play hide-and-seek with the younger 2. In the midst of the game, I ended up locked outside the house. I knocked, rang the doorbell, but the older girl pretended she couldn't hear me, even putting in her headphones. I felt my anger rise, but I kept my composure and tried to persuade her to open the door. After what felt like an eternity, the family friend arrived and let me back inside, and I couldn't hide the mix of disappointment and exhaustion I felt. When I got home, I sat down to reflect on everything that had happened. I had once dreamed of becoming a stepmother to Kay's kids, imagining a future where I would care for them just like he did. But after this experience, I was shaken. Not only were the kids difficult, but they also showed no respect for me, and I wasn't sure how I could ever develop a relationship with them, especially when I wasn't even a real part of their family. Moreover, I started to question the image I had of Kay. I had admired him for how loving and attentive he was to his family, but now I began to wonder if their family life was really as perfect as he made it seem. Maybe it was just an illusion I had created in my mind. Would I have the courage to face the reality if I decided to pursue these feelings further? After the tense evening with Kay's kids, I couldn't stop thinking about what had just happened. Even though I had tried my best to stay calm and handle every situation, the feeling of disappointment lingered. For the first time, I realized that becoming a part of Kay's family wasn't as easy as I had imagined. The kids were not only difficult, but also showed a lack of respect, and I couldn't see how I could easily integrate with them. Doubts began creeping into my mind. Before, I had dreamed of a future where I could be a loving stepmother to Kay's children. But after this experience, everything seemed unclear and complicated. Could I really love these kids like I imagined? Would the complex family dynamics bring more pain than happiness? I wasn't sure anymore about the life I had pictured with Kay. As these thoughts swirled in my head, I couldn't escape my feelings for him. Although I now saw that his family wasn't the perfect picture I had once thought, I still felt a special connection with Kay. That feeling hadn't faded, and it left me torn, unsure of whether I should continue pursuing it or let it go. A few days later, when Kay and I met on the train, he seemed more anxious than usual. He talked about his wife, mentioning that she was still in a fragile state after the accident, and he needed to spend more time caring for her. I felt sympathy for him, but at the same time, I also sensed a growing distance between us. I couldn't help but notice the vast differences between us when he talked about his family. While I deeply respected the love and care he had for his wife and kids, I couldn't stop wondering if this connection between us could ever be more than just brief conversations on the train. So I decided to take some time to ask myself what I really wanted. I couldn't deny that I had started to feel strong emotions for Kay, but I also couldn't ignore the challenges I would face if I entered his life. This relationship might bring joy, but it could also come with many complications. Marrying someone with a family and children wasn't simple, especially when I didn't fully understand the complexities of their life. I began to see myself standing at a crossroads. On one hand, I felt that I could build a beautiful relationship with Kay, but on the other hand, I realized I might have to sacrifice a lot. Could I accept all the difficulties and challenges, or was this just an illusion I needed to let go of before it was too late? Every day, I felt myself sinking deeper into an emotional whirlwind I couldn't easily escape. My thoughts about Kay consumed me, and even though I tried to keep my distance, I couldn't control my feelings. I realized I was caught in a very complicated situation where reason and emotion clashed constantly. One morning when we met on the train, Kay seemed to notice the change in my demeanor. He asked if I was okay, but I couldn't give him a straight answer. I felt like I was at a crossroads, a decision that could change everything. The thoughts about continuing this relationship, even just as friends, seemed to become more and more unclear. Should I pursue this connection or stop before things get too complicated? I decided to have an honest conversation with Kay, even though I knew it could make things awkward. One afternoon, when we met at a park near the train station, I hesitantly started the conversation. "Kay, I think we need to talk," I began. Kay looked at me with concern, and I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. I couldn't hide my feelings anymore, but I didn't want to make things uncomfortable for him. "I don't know what I'm thinking, but I feel like something's not right," I continued, looking down to avoid his gaze. "I really respect everything you do for your family, but I can't help but wonder if I could fit into your life." Kay was silent for a moment, as if he was carefully thinking about what I said. Then he spoke. "You don't have to worry about that. It's not as simple as you think. I don't ever want you to feel like you need to change to fit into my family." He paused and then added, "I love my wife and kids, and you understand that not everything can change overnight. I don't want you to feel like you have to replace anyone." Kay's response left me feeling somewhat relieved, but also made me realize that what I had imagined about a relationship with him might only be an illusion. He was very clear about his love and commitment to his family. While I wanted a relationship with him, I also couldn't deny that it might never happen. After the conversation, I became more certain that I needed time to think about everything. Even though I had strong feelings for Kay, I knew that a relationship like that wouldn't be easy. My feelings for him might not be reciprocated in the way I hoped, and I didn't want to get caught up in a situation with no way out. Could this connection develop, or would it just be a beautiful memory I needed to let go of to avoid hurting myself and others? With these questions in my mind, I realized that I needed to make a decision again, not just about my feelings for Kay, but also about whether I could continue down this path without losing respect for myself or his family.